So I was trying to figure out a way to kind of showcase brands and collections to you guys without being boring, without being so predictable. Hey, this brand is this brand and you should really check it out because I'm in Japan and it's really hard to buy. Again, we still need to figure out a way to give you guys access. I have an idea on how to do that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the week or sometime in the near future. That being said, how do we present new brands to you? Well, of course, we're going to show you what those brands are, but also we need to have a discussion about it. So every time we showcase a brand to you right here on The Casual, we're always going to pose a question, start a discussion, have a debate. I don't know, any one of those things. Now, today we're going casual, right? There's this brand that started in 2016 called Tone. It's coming from Japan. You can actually go to their website, tonetokyo.com. Now, their collections are a mix of military, skate, normcore, street prep, kind of that vibe going on. Has a very muted palette when it comes to most of their collections. So it's not very bright. It's very, very moody in a sense. And the fact that they're using these colors that are a little bit toned down, no pun intended. Now, this is interesting with this brand because it's focused on look rather than branding. There's literally no branding inside. You won't find any logos, no graphic tees, none of that. It is strictly the look. That is their approach. And it's really telling because the stockists for this particular brand are a lot in Tokyo, but it's noticeable. Like it's predictable. I mean, they're at Ship's Jet Blue, which is kind of like an upgraded basics, I would say. And then you have Wisdom, Beams, Backdoor, Studious Third, Link, Styles, Daikanyama. These are all places that showcase more approach, like the focused brand, something that is more of a lifestyle and approach to fashion rather than strictly branding and pieces of that nature where it's like logos and whatnot. Now, their 2018 collection is a bit more functional, more or less. It's still in the same range of collections in the past, really diving deep into that kind of normcore street skate vibe going on, but really changing the textiles, changing the quality, and really focusing on silhouettes. Now, as far as me wearing this particular collection, this particular brand, I will tell you that it's not really my first go-to choice. You might be like, yo, why are you talking about a brand that you wouldn't wear? Because I try to be objective. I try to look at it through the lens of, if I was into this particular style, would I wear it? Try to put myself in the shoes of somebody who would like it. And I look at it and I think it's fantastic for a person that likes this style because they're really going deeper into the look. And I think that that's commendable, but it begs the question, which is where we get into the discussion piece of the synopsis today. Can this approach work? This approach of focus on look rather than excessive branding like logos and stuff. Can this approach work out west? Can you start a brand or can you do your style like this? Now, a lot of people are already doing this. A lot of people are already mixing and matching with vintage and trying to find new ways to create the style that they want. A lot of people are experimenting. But for the most part, the West focuses more on status symbols, logos, patterns, releases, limited editions, and name recognition. While in Japan, the quality, look, feel, approach, lifestyle are incredibly important when we're talking about fashion choices. That doesn't necessarily mean that the West is not like that. It just means that Japan, in terms of fashion, they look for these typical things. It's these particular points of approach to lifestyle, really digging deep into the lifestyle to create something that is familiar but kind of new. Now, the West doesn't really need to further extrapolate the cultures that they are a part of. So if you look at this collection by Tone, you immediately think, well, this is something that we've been wearing for years. This style is out there. We don't need to go deeper into this style. And most street culture comes from the West, so we don't need to dive deeper into our own culture. But in Japan, they study culture to the finest detail. I mean, to the finest detail. From the fact that they'll go and look at something, observe a style, observe a brand, observe a lifestyle, and really get so deep into it that they create something that's strictly for that lifestyle or strictly for that style, and refine it and make it, sometimes, some people would argue, better. Now, this goes with a little bit of pros and cons from the West and Japan. On the pro side for the West, I mean, we create the dynamic. It's in its pure form. It's raw. It's unfiltered. When we create these styles, it's not about trying to extrapolate from the culture and make it better. We created it. We don't need to study ourselves, right? But by not doing that, and here's where the con comes in, we don't dive deeper into the intricacies of that culture. Because again, it's like studying ourselves. We don't have to. But we can make some of the styles that we have created better if we dug deep into it. That's the con. We don't do it because we're unfiltered. That's what we do. But in Japan, you can often find newer, fresher takes on these styles simply because they're looking at it from an observer's point of view. They're not necessarily coming up with the styles, but they certainly are looking at them and learning from them. The only problem with this is by going so far deep into the details, trying so hard to make it right, you lose a lot of the soul that is required to rock it, the movement, the culture behind it. You lose a lot of it. And essentially, this look, this approach, these things like tone become just clothes. It's almost like a costume. So in my conclusion, when it comes down to it, it comes down to the West likes to be taught, and Japan likes to learn. You might say, wait a minute. That's the same thing. That's the same thing, Reggie. You're talking in circles. It's bananas. Now, what I mean is in the West, we take this approach that the faster direction to the desired outcome. So we like to be told, how do I get to that point? How do I get from A to B as quick as possible? In our fashion choices, we do this all the time. Tell us what we should buy. How should we do it? That's why YouTube DIY is so huge. Tell me how to do it, and I'll find a way to rock it, and I'll find a way to intermingle it with my interests. That's what we do out West. We'll learn along the way. And this leads to interpretation and innovation. And that's what the West is all about. Interpretation and innovation. Now, in the East, it's about interpretation and fusion, right? Assimilating it into the traditional aesthetic, and particularly in Japan. You see this a lot. And that's why I say Japan likes to learn. They study the details, the finest point. They don't reinvent. They reevaluate from what they've learned, and they maintain the original aesthetic for the most part. And when you look at tone, this is certainly the case. Certainly not every brand does this. You have brands like Sugarlism that do take chances, that do go out of the norm. But like I said, usually it's taking something that they know and fusing it with a traditional aesthetic. If you know anything about Japanese traditional aesthetic, there's a lot of layering and a lot of drape involved. They add a lot of this into their fashion design choices, not just style, but design as well. You see a lot of that with new brands coming out. So just keep that in mind. This is overarching. It's just a general statement, but for the most part, in the West, fastest direction to the desired outcome. Japan, study, learn. Tell me how to do it, but I'm going to further study it. I'm going to find everybody that knows anything about it. So can this approach that Japan takes, learn, and really take back some of these styles that we've created in the past and really bring them to the forefront, again, brandless, just the look, can it work out West? Can this method work? I pose that question to you. I mean, my opinion on it is that the West is going in this direction right now, but we still fall victim to consumerism, massive consumerism. But you see more and more individuals going toward vintage. You know how many people have asked us, me personally, Reggie, go out, Show us some vintage stores in Tokyo that we should hit up. And we got something laid out for you very soon. You'll see something like that. But in the West, there's more experimentation happening, more mixing and matching. I'm loving it. I'm loving what I'm seeing. We're looking for a way out of massive consumerism. We're curating our clothes. We're creating styles. And maybe soon we'll go in completely that direction. The look is way more important than the brand. Even though today it looks like a long shot. But right now, we're seeing this massive shift in fashion into this area that Japan has been doing for quite some time. You look at tone and you see it happening right before your eyes. So I want to know what you think. Do you think that brands like Tone, going for the look rather than the brand, will become a thing in the West? Is that the approach to go for? Can it work in the West? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. But if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And most importantly, keep it locked right here for all of your info on international street fashion and culture from Tokyo. It's your boy, and keep it casual. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. And I'll see you guys in a minute.